Hi, my name is Sean. This is an overview of running the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Healthcheck assessment in SmartForms. SmartForms is a web-based FHIR-powered forms renderer developed by the Australian eHealth Research Centre of CSIRO. It supports integration with electronic health record systems by leveraging Smart App Launch, an integration framework which allows third-party apps to connect to data within an EHR. With this capability, it is possible for practitioners to conduct health assessments digitally in a seamless and secure manner. This is an interface simulating a clinical management system that we have built for the purpose to demonstrate launching the Healthcheck assessment. Here, we have a patient profile belonging to a synthetically generated patient, Mrs. SmartForm. There is other information in here related to the patient such as conditions, medications, allergies, etc. To launch the SmartForms app, let's click on the Launch button here. It launches the app in the context of this patient, the current user within the system, and a pre-configured questionnaire. In this case, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Healthcheck assessment. So just to verify that we are in the right place, we can check if the patient on the sidebar matches the patient we have in our EHR previously. We would also need to verify the name of the current logged-in user. And just to double confirm, the title of the questionnaire on the top bar. Let's talk about data pre-population. If we click into the Patient Details tab, we can see that there are a bunch of patient demographics being populated into the form from the system. We can see details such as the patient's name, date of birth, age, gender, Aboriginal and/or Torres Strait Islander status, patient's address, some phone numbers, and the patient's Medicare number. Again, these details should match the information in the EHR. There are other pre-populated sections as well. One of them are medical problems. So we can see that there are a couple of medical problems which are populated in here. And the other sections are examination, where we have the patient's height, weight, BMI, blood pressures, and some other vital signs in here. So at the moment, pre-populated fields are limited to patient demographics, medical problems, patient's height and weight, and vital signs. But as we move forward, the goal is to pre-populate as much data as possible from the EHR. Pre-populating data helps practitioners in saving time in very obvious ways, since the same field wouldn't need to be filled over and over again when a new patient comes in for a health check. So one of the coolest things about defining the health assessment in a FHIR questionnaire is that we can leverage a feature called conditional rendering. Conditional rendering allows us to display only the relevant sections for a patient's age group. In other words, by just having a single FHIR questionnaire, we can structure the display of content for 5 different age groups of patients. Just for demonstration purposes, let me change this patient's age to an age of a young child. Let's say 4 years old. So what happened is that it triggered the tabs relevant to a young child to appear and the irrelevant tabs to disappear. Here, we have an example of a relevant tab called Red Flags Early Identification Guide for Children. If I change it to a working adult's age, we are gonna get tabs relevant to a working adult, and the irrelevant tabs will be filtered out as well. Conditional rendering also works for individual questions. Let's say I change this patient's age to 12. This question here about parents or primary carers details has now appeared, since it is only relevant if the patient is 12 years old or under. Let's revert the patient's age back to 54, which is the original age, and that question will disappear, since it's not relevant to the age group of the current patient. There's another simple example of questions that utilize conditional rendering. These are yes-no questions, and there are a couple variants of these questions throughout the health check, such as this one here for My Age Care. So let's say a patient is registered. The form will prompt an input for a My Age Care number. If the patient isn't registered, that field will be hidden. Overall, conditional rendering helps to filter out questions that are not relevant to the patient in context, which greatly increases the productivity of practitioners when they facilitate a health check. Each section in the form has a marked section as complete button as its last question. This button triggers a green tick on the tab and on the top right of the section. They indicate that this section is complete. This comes in handy when multiple practitioners are working on the same health assessment at different time periods. The first practitioner can fill in some of the sections and leave the remaining sections for other practitioners to complete. This allows practitioners to save time by skipping those previously completed sections. Keep in mind that this is just a general breakdown of the feature. More sophisticated controls can be implemented to restrict who is allowed to finalize certain sections within a health assessment. After working through the health assessment, we can click on the preview button here to have a double check before saving the form. Let's scan through it and verify our changes. If it looks good, we can either hit the Save as Draft button or the Save as Final button. In this case, we can save it as a draft, just to demonstrate that I can retrieve it and continue working on it later. Let's say another user wants to complete the health assessment that we have partially completed just now. I have pre-configured Dr. Peter Primary as the current user. We would have to launch the app from the EHR again, except this time we are in a new session. So once we confirm that we have the same patient, we can launch the app. By default, the app is always going to create a new response. So we have to click on this button to access the response that we have previously saved. This is our partially completed response, so we can go ahead and open it. So we are going to get this preview screen again. Let's click on the Edit Response button. This time, we want to complete the entire form, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I've just finished completing the health assessment, and now that I'm done, we can save the form as final. Let's confirm this. So the status of the response has now been changed to completed. Let's go ahead and open it. We can verify that the buttons Edit Response and Save as Final on the sidebar is now gone. And we have a completed form here. So that's the general workflow of operating this app. Let's talk about the additional features supported within the app. I'm currently in the examination section, and I would like to talk about built-in calculations. We would be able to dynamically calculate a person's BMI or CVD risk score within the form itself. BMI is a pretty straightforward one. As I tweak the height and weight values of the patient, let's change it to 170, 180, 80 kilograms, 90 kilograms. We can observe that the BMI value fluctuates according to the height and weight changes of the patient. So this is just for demonstration purposes. We wouldn't be tweaking these values in a real setting. It's just a showcase of the calculations going on behind the scene. I mentioned CVD risk calculation as well, so let's see that in action. There's already a pre-calculated value here, but again, as I tweak these values, we would be able to affect the CVD risk result here. It works across sections as well. So let's say if I change the patient to a non-smoker, we would be getting a lower CVD risk value. And if I change it back, it's going to increase once again. These built-in calculations are driven by a formula or an algorithm contained within the FHIR questionnaire. So really, we can easily apply this to other use cases. A simple use case I can think of is calculating the percentage of weight change over a time period, say 3 months for example. This can be done by defining a simple formula that takes a patient's newly recorded weight and divide it by the weight recorded 3 months ago to get our resulting weight change. At the bottom of most of the sections in the health check, there is this text box here for health priorities, actions, and follow-up. These boxes are essentially summary boxes for each section. And there's a section at the end of the form which consolidates all of these boxes throughout the form and display it in a single view. This view is present in the preview as well. This allows practitioners to quickly go through the follow-up notes if there are any. I would like to talk about terminology support next. We are currently in the medical history and current problems section. So let's scroll down to this list of problems. This search field right here is powered by OntoServer, which allows us to search across a specific terminology set. In this case, we are doing a SNOMED CT search. Let's try searching for left fracture on elbow, off elbow. That works as well. So it gave me a better sounding result, which is open fracture of left elbow. I'll take that. Now let's try something else. Let's say I can't remember the medical term for high blood pressure off the top of my head. I can search for high blood pressure, and it's going to give me hypertension, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So OntoServer allows us to search against synonym terms within a specific terminology set, which is extremely helpful if you think about it. One of the most important functionalities of the SmartForms app is that it will try its best to render any kind of FHIR questionnaire, as long as the questionnaire conforms to the FHIR specifications. Here, I have pre-configured the EHR to launch a CVD risk calculator questionnaire. Let's launch it. So instead of the health check assessment, this is an absolute cardiovascular risk calculator defined within a FHIR questionnaire. It is much shorter than what we had just now, and it doesn't have any tabs on the side. Yet, this renderer is able to render it properly. So, the cool thing about this is every other feature that I've mentioned in this video still works here. In this case, data pre-population and calculations. That's all I have for this video. Thanks for having me and see you next time.